Thank you all for joining. This is Michelle Savage with XBRL US, and you are here for our webinar, Countdown to EDGAR Next Enrollment. We really appreciate everybody coming today. We know this is a hot topic, and I just want to cover a few logistical points before I get started on the agenda. We are taking questions for this session, and you can use your Q&A link to post questions into us directly. We'll be holding off on those questions until the end of the program because we have a lot to cover. But please go ahead and submit those so that we can start reviewing them and getting our answers ready. Also, if anyone has any problems with technical issues during the program today, please email us at support, SUPPORT, @xbrl.us, and we'll do our best to get you back online. So with that, I'm going to turn over to our agenda. So if we go to the next slide here. So what we're going to be covering today is, first, we're going to start with EDGAR Next and security. And that's going to be handled by Scott Tice, who's CEO of NovaWorks. And then we're going to be moving on to a discussion with staff at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Wanda Welch, business analyst at Donnelley Financial Solutions, or DFIN, is going to be handling that session. And she's going to be introducing the SEC staff that will be joining us today. Next, we'll have Nikki Berteau, who's the sales engineer of Disclosure Solutions at Broadridge Financial. Nikki is going to cover prepping for enrollment. And then next, she's going to cover a technical review of manual enrollment in particular. Then lastly, we're going to have Angela McTeer. Angela's business requirements analyst at Donnelley Financial Solutions, and she is going to address technical review of bulk enrollment. Then finally, we'll get back to those questions that I mentioned earlier. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Tice, who's going to start with security issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And I see there's a lot of people attending this today, which is really wonderful. So what are we going to be covering today? And the first question, I think, is why would we have another webinar? One of my roles is I serve as the chair of the domain steering committee, and we run a lot of these different training sessions, and my group helps participate in this, and the modernization group helps participate in this. And it's not XBRL, but it is extremely important, and it impacts a lot of our members. And we felt that there really should be additional outreach. The SEC has done an excellent job of putting up information, but we figured this would help reach even more people. And considering it's such a large change, it's something that we believe deserves a lot of attention. It's good to note, at least you go back, and for me, we've been around for quite a while. Over the decades, there's been a number of significant, as you'd say in development, waterfall improvements to EDGAR, where there's been a big change. The original system was dial-up, and then it went to UUNet, and then finally onto the internet. We had extensible data forms language or forms data language that got replaced with XML. So there's been a lot of different changes. This is the next big one. And there was a requirement here that the government in general up its security with things like multi-factor and whatnot that came from an executive order a number of years back. So the EDGAR Next system is part of that whole process. And the SEC did a lot of outreach with this and spoke to stakeholders and had numerous meetings, which I think was just wonderful, and learned a lot. And so I think we're headed towards a really good system in the end here. But what really matters is that everybody participates and gets on board with it as soon as possible, so it's not a big surprise, given the scope and whatnot. So we're going to introduce the main points of this transition and how to get started with it. And what I'm going to cover here is a little bit about security. So when we first started off with EDGAR, and it hasn't changed much over the number of decades, is there's been very limited quote-unquote roles. We've had registrants, which could be anything from reporting owners to Williams Act to 33 Act companies. We have people who are agents who have agent credentials. Those credentials are used specifically to log on to the system, but they're used by a lot of different people within that particular agent. And then we've had training agent credentials. So those have kind of been the only real defined roles. And when we look at the agent credentials, if I have that and I have a CIK CCC, you can file. And that's really kind of been a big security hole for a long time. As a developer and having a lot of software out in the field, We've spent a lot of time thinking and discussing how can we redact all the CCCs once things are filed. And we've written scripts to do that because that data at rest then is an issue. So there's a lot of room for security improvements, and I think we're going to see a lot of stuff happen here with that. It's also difficult to discern the individual who actually logged in and submitted the filing because, again, you're looking at just agent credentials, and that agent may have anywhere from 1 or 2 employees to hundreds of employees that are participating in this. So some of the big concerns are we need a better method of controlling who can file on behalf of the registrant. Right now, anyone who's got numbers, as I said, can file on behalf of anybody if they've got the right data. So that's a big change. Um, so the omnibus credentials, basically, that's just got to go, and this is going to deal with that. The existing system doesn't have MFA or multi-factor authentication. In the past 5 or 10 years, we've pretty much all have gotten used to that, whether it's using an authenticator on your phone or getting a text message that has a code on it that you have to enter into Google or whatever the case happens to be. But MFA adds that additional layer of security because you have to have a separate device, a separate method to validate who you are. So we're going to be looking at refining the roles. The SEC is going to refine the roles for filing. So if you look at today, we have all kinds of different people who file, registrants in all sizes and forms, from small cap that it might be a single individual is responsible for all the filings for a firm. They may also be a self-filer, to large fund complexes that may have thousands of different series and class and CIKs and trusts and things. Then we have law firms and agents, and then financial printers that tend to do not just agent roles, but do a lot more things than that with regard to service. Each one of these parties is going to be impacted in various ways. So if you're listening to this and you watch this on YouTube, whatever the case is, you need to think about how that will be impacting you. So it's not only learning the different terminology and new stuff, it's how's that going to change my job? So the filing entities themselves, they tend to have roles that are related to things like the corporate secretary, like investor relations or finance, or et cetera. Now you're going to have additional roles with respect to the responsibility for the EDGAR system. And you're going to have to set all that stuff up. So that'll help control how a submission is made and by whom. You're going to be delegating that authority to various people. For some organizations, this will involve a fair amount of setup for multiple legal entities. I know a number of our clients have said, hey, we have thousands of different fund things, that groups that we actually have to manage. So all that stuff has to be set up and worked with. And it's, oops, a little too far there. This will also impact the workflow within the organization and the responsibilities. So with agents, you're going to have to deal with a really big important point, and that is each user must now have unique credentials. They don't have to be a CIK, but they have to have login.gov, and they have to be using their credentials when they're filing something. And this, while you can kind of skirt around it, it's mandated by rule. So I would recommend that you definitely do that. We've had to kind of take some of our agent customers and say, hey, listen, you really can't be having the same computer being used by 4 people with the same credentials on it. And they've all kind of gotten in line now. So, and your filings themselves, the registrants themselves, are going to be looking for assistance for a lot of different areas. And we'll be talking about some of that today here. And many of the firms as agents are going to help deal with these large databases and assist those firms in dealing with this transition. So there's going to be new methods. There's going to be new controls. If you're doing anything on accounting, you know what controls are. This has become more important now with security, where you have security controls, and you're going to have training as well for your staff. So there's new ideas, there's new terminology. Today, we're going to cover how to get started with this. We're going to cover key points with the SEC through a bunch of Q&A things, and I'm so happy that they're on board here to actually answer questions. And then we're going to go through the enrollment process and talk about login.gov and MFA, and we're going to cover the enrollment roles and tokens and things like that. So now is the time to start thinking. The system opens up in a few weeks here. There's going to be a parallel for 6 months, and then another little transition thing after that. We'll be covering that in more detail. So don't put it off to the end. We don't want to have a whole bunch of people overwhelming support with, oh, what do I do now? So with that, we're going to move on to the discussion with the SEC with Wanda Welt. And I'm going to hand it over to Wanda, and she's going to do that now. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Scott. We will now move into our Q&A phase of the presentation, and I would like to introduce the representatives from the SEC. We have Daniel Chang, who is Senior Special Counsel with the EDGAR Business Office and Office of Chief Counsel, Rosemary Fallu, who is Deputy Director and Chief Counsel of the EDGAR Business Office, and Larita Finch, who is Senior Special Counsel, EDGAR Business Office and Office of Chief Counsel. Rosemary is providing an SEC disclaimer. Then we will get started with the Q&A.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin speaking, I'd like to offer the following disclaimer on behalf of SEC staff. This presentation represents the views of the staff of the EDGAR Business Office, not a rule, regulation, or statement of the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Commission is neither approved nor disapproved of its content. As with all staff statements, this information has no legal force or effect, does not alter or amend the applicable law, and it creates no new or additional obligations. Thank you, Wanda.
Thank you, Rosemary. Our first set of questions focus on objective. So the first question is, what's the objective of the EDGAR Next implementation? What is it expected to accomplish?
Thank you, Wanda. So the Commission is seeking to enhance the security of EDGAR while also improving the ability of filers to securely manage and maintain access to their EDGAR accounts. We'd also like to facilitate the responsible management of filer credentials and simplify the procedures for accessing EDGAR.
Okay. Explain to us why the SEC chose login.gov.
So login.gov is used by participating federal agencies as well as state, local, and territorial governments to provide a secure login process and to allow members of the public to use a single account protected by encryption, multi-factor authentication, as Scott referenced, and additional safeguards.
Okay. So what are your expectations about the enrollment process? Do you think certain registrants will find it easier than others? And have you received any feedback from issuers in reference to this enrollment process directly?
Thank you so much, Wanda. I'll take that question.
Okay.
If filers follow the guidance and instructions that we have provided, we expect that the enrollment process will be successful. We believe that the filers who have maintained current codes and engage in frequent coordination and communication with all of those who are authorized to file on their behalf will not experience any difficulty in enrolling. However, even if filers have not maintained current codes or communicated frequently with all of their agents, filers have time now to prepare for the enrollment process. Filers should follow our SEC staff's enrollment guidance on the EDGAR Next page on sec.gov, gather all the information needed to enroll, including resetting the CCC and or passphrase if this has not been done since September of 2019, and they should communicate with all whom they will authorize to file on their behalf prior to enrollment. And with respect to feedback from issuers, we have had 5 webinars thus far. They are uploaded on our sec.gov webinar, on our sec.gov webpage, on our SEC EDGAR Next webpage on sec.gov. And we have there a host of other resources, including videos, one of which is very specific to enrollment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, our next phase of questions are focused on timing and other requirements. There are some very important deadlines in the EDGAR Next program that registrants should be aware of. Can you explain what happens during each of the EDGAR Next phases and what registrants should be achieving during these phases? For example, During this initial phase-in period, which started September 30th, 2024, and runs through March 21st, 2025, what are your recommendations for filers?
Okay, so I'll take this. So yes, from Monday, September 30th, 2024 to Friday, March 21st, 2025, filers have been afforded a preparation period of approximately 6 months, during which they may test in the adopting beta and conduct related development, including but not limited to connection to beta versions of all application programming interfaces or APIs to be offered as part of EDGAR Next. In addition, individuals that filers intend to authorize to act on their behalf may obtain login.gov individual account credentials. Further, filers may assemble information they will need to enroll in EDGAR Next, including but not limited to ensuring that they possess their current CCC and passphrase and determining who they will authorize as account administrators.
Okay.
One thing I also like to mention is that the adopting beta environment is solely a test environment and is discrete from the live public EDGAR system. This means that any information entered in and obtained from adopting beta is fictitious, not related to, and will not be recognized in the live EDGAR system, with the exception of login.gov credentials. This means you'll be able to continue to use the same login.gov credentials in adopting beta and in live EDGAR when the EDGAR filer management dashboard goes live. For that reason, when you're creating login.gov credentials for use in the adopting beta, you should consider providing to login.gov an email address that matches the email address you intend to use in connection with live public EDGAR. That email address will be used to identify you in EDGAR and send you EDGAR notifications. Because email addresses provided to login.gov to create individual account credentials may be visible on the dashboard to others, you should provide an email address that you intend to use for EDGAR and other business purposes, which may be different from the email address that you use for personal purposes.
Okay. So on March 24th, 2025, the new EDGAR filer management dashboard goes live. Between that date and September 12th, 2025, we understand that filers should focus on enrolling. Is that correct?
Yes, existing filers should prepare for and enroll in EDGAR Next between March 24th, 2025 and September 12th, 2025 to avoid interruption in the ability to file on September 15th, 2025, which is the compliance date for EDGAR Next. On Monday, March 24th, 2025, the new EDGAR filer management website, including the dashboard, will go live. Enrollment of existing filers will commence, and applicants for EDGAR access will be required to comply with the amended Form ID. Individuals will need login.gov individual account credentials to log into the dashboard. For enrollment, a person authorized by the filer will log into the dashboard to enroll the filer. On the dashboard, the person authorized by the filer will enter the filer's CIK and current CCC and passphrase, as well as the names of and relevant information about the individuals the filer is authorizing as account administrators. If the information is accurate, enrollment could be effective the same day submitted. Enrolled filers will be able to make submissions through the optional APIs if they otherwise satisfy the requirements to connect to the APIs, while still being able to file pursuant to the legacy filing processes on the EDGAR filing websites. In addition, filers whose amended Form ID applications are granted by SEC staff on or after March 24th, 2025 will automatically be subject to EDGAR Next and will not need to enroll.
Okay, the next important date begins September 15th through December 19th, 2025. Filers can continue to enroll, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. On September 15th, 2025, which is the compliance date, EDGAR will require individual account credentials on the EDGAR filing websites as well as the EDGAR filer management website. At that time, individuals who seek to make submissions and take other actions for filers on EDGAR will be required to enter login.gov credentials and will be authorized to access EDGAR through enrollment on amended Form ID or on the dashboard. After the compliance date, until December 19th, 2025, existing filers who have not yet enrolled will not be able to make submissions or take other actions in EDGAR other than enroll on the EDGAR filer management dashboard. The enrollment process will remain the same as prior to the compliance date, requiring the filer to provide their CIK, CCC, passphrase, and names and information about authorized account administrators. If filers do possess their CCC or passphrase, methods will be available for them to reset those codes in order to enroll.
Okay, so just to clarify, after December 22nd, 2025, if filers have not enrolled, they will not be able to file on EDGAR. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
In addition, after that date, existing filers who have not yet enrolled in EDGAR Next will be required to submit the amended Form ID on the dashboard to apply for access to their existing EDGAR accounts in order to file on EDGAR.
Okay. Are there any other important dates that registrants should be aware of?
Yes, the EDGAR filing websites will continue to employ the current submission process for all filers until Friday, September 12th, 2025. On Monday, September 15th, 2025, the compliance date, all EDGAR websites will require filers' compliance with the EDGAR Next rule and form changes in order to make submissions, including but not limited to login.gov credentials and authorization through the dashboard. Also, if a filer has not reset its CCC and/or passphrase since September 2019, the filer should reset those codes prior to enrolling. Current codes can be obtained by following the instructions on the EDGAR Next page on sec.gov.
For a company that is a new filer, when will they be required to use the amended Form ID?
So amended Form ID is effective March 24th. Prospective new filers must apply for EDGAR access on the amended Form ID. They will do so by logging into the dashboard on the new EDGAR Filer Management website with login.gov credentials, navigating to apply for access, and completing the requirements of the form. Note that those required to apply for EDGAR access on amended Form ID include both prospective filers seeking access to EDGAR for the first time and existing filers that must apply for access to EDGAR because they, 1, lost electronic access to their existing EDGAR account, 2, are a legal successor of the filer named on the existing EDGAR account but did not receive access from that filer, or 3, are a broker-dealer or paper filer seeking electronic access for the first time in order to file electronically an existing EDGAR account in their name. If commission staff grant the amended Form ID application, the filer will be in compliance with the EDGAR Next changes and thus will not be required to subsequently enroll in the dashboard.
Okay. Is enrollment required even if the registrant does not submit filings on EDGAR themselves?
Yeah, to file an EDGAR on and after September 15th, all existing filers must enroll in EDGAR Next or be granted access on or after March 24th on amended Form ID. It is the filer whose name appears on the EDGAR account who is responsible for determining who will enroll in EDGAR Next. Filers should communicate with all those authorized to file on their behalf to determine who will perform enrollment for the filer and what information will be provided during enrollment.
Okay. Thank you so much. Finally, we have a few preparation and EDGAR Next questions. What has the SEC done to help registrants prepare?
So I'll take that, Wanda, thank you. So as you know, the Commission issued a detailed release adopting the EDGAR Next rule and form amendments on September 27th of last year. Immediately thereafter, SEC staff provided filers with a public beta environment to test and preview the EDGAR Next changes. SEC staff has conducted numerous webinars for filers, provided detailed, dedicated content and instruction on sec.gov, held technical working sessions regarding APIs, provided telephone and email support, publicized EDGAR Next through announcements, press releases, and social media, discussed issues with commenters and others who reached out to our dedicated email box, and more. Links to our prior webinars and YouTube videos explaining critical components of EDGAR Next are available on the EDGAR Next page on sec.gov. We'll continue to support filers in these and any other ways possible to ensure a smooth transition to EDGAR Next.
Okay. What advice would you give to registrants and vendors at this time?
I would say please avail yourself of the multiple resources that SEC staff has provided on the EDGAR Next page. Please be aware that SEC staff has also recently added an instructional video demonstrating how to enroll in EDGAR Next on the SEC YouTube channel. Please read the adopting release if you can and preview the EDGAR Next changes in the beta environment, both of which can be accessed from the EDGAR Next page. There's still plenty of time to prepare. Filers may enroll anytime on or before September 12th, 2025 to avoid an interruption in filing. Filing will continue according to current practices on the EDGAR filing website until September 12th, 2025. Filers who enroll, however, will be immediately able to use all EDGAR Next APIs, including the Submission API. Please reach out to SEC staff if you need additional assistance.
Thank you all very much. This ends our Q&A session. If you have any additional questions, please use the chat feature. I will now turn over to Nikki Ann Bertro. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Wanda, Daniel, Rosemary, and Loretta. That was a very informative session, so definitely a big thank you. So now let's dive into the enrollment process. The goal here is to guide you through the steps that you're going to need for a smooth transition to EDGAR Next. Next slide, please. To begin, we have prepared an enrollment checklist to help you get organized. The first step in the enrollment process is to kind of go through this checklist and ensure that all of these key elements are in place. So first, you want to verify your central index key, or CIK, to ensure that your entity's identification is correct. Then you're going to confirm your CIK confirmation code, or CCC, and you also want to confirm that it is current. Next, validate your passphrase and confirm it is also current. And we'll talk about both of those a little bit more in detail in a moment. A current CCC and passphrase, this means that both have been reset or established after September 2019, okay? You'll also need to identify at least 2 account administrators for your organization. These individuals, they'll be the ones that'll manage your EDGAR account. Next, determine your annual confirmation dates. So one of your account administrators must confirm all information on your EDGAR dashboard by one of the 4 designated dates you see here. So March 31st, June 30th, September 30th, or December 31st. This is required to maintain compliance. You'll also need to identify whether the entity is a single member EDGAR account, and you'll also need to identify all of your delegated filers by name and CIK. Your delegated filers, those are the filers that can submit filings to EDGAR on your behalf. And lastly, you want to ensure that all users and account administrators attain login.gov credentials in advance of enrollment. So now let's go in detail into each of these steps. First up, verifying your CIK is the first step. If you've misplaced or forgotten your CIK, you can always look it up using the SEC's EDGAR company search tool. You'll just simply enter the name of the company and it'll provide you with the corresponding CIK. You can also utilize the SEC CIK lookup as well. For certain broker-dealers, updates will need to be made through FINRA's web CRD system. Okay. Now let's move on to confirming your CCC. So the CIK confirmation code, or CCC, this is a key component of your EDGAR authentication. If you have forgotten or misplaced your CCC, it can be regenerated as part of a new set of codes that includes your password and PMAC. If your CCC, again, has not been reset since September 2019, it must be reset before you can proceed with your EDGAR Next enrollment. You can always generate a new CCC and the other access codes by utilizing the link you see here, which is the SEC's How Do I guides for reference. So next up, the passphrase. This is another critical security element. If you have lost or forgotten your passphrase, or if it has not been reset since September 2019, you must reset it before enrolling. There are two ways to reset your passphrase. First, there's a security token request, which is the preferred method. This is the fastest and the easiest way to reset your passphrase. The SEC will send you a security token to the email address that's associated with your EDGAR point of contact, so the EDGAR POC. The other option is a much more limited available option, and it's the manual update request. So if you're unable to reset using the security token, a manual request can be submitted or must be submitted to the SEC, which could take additional time. For all the details on resetting your passphrase, you can also visit the link you see here for the SEC's guide. So now once your passphrase is updated, the next step is to designate your account administrators. So we recommend a minimum of 2 account administrators assigned to all EDGAR accounts. Each can have up to 20 account administrators, but these administrators will manage all aspects of that EDGAR account. And when selecting your account administrators, you want to make sure that you have all of the details, the items here listed, available for each one of your account administrators. So the business email address, the full name, the business address details, city, state, and postal code, and the business phone number. Also, employer information is required should the individual be employed at a different entity. So selecting the appropriate administrators, it's critical to maintaining secure access and compliance. Okay, moving on to the annual confirmation date. Every EDGAR account must select an annual confirmation date. This is when you will be required to confirm all of your EDGAR account information, and there are 4 available options. You have March 31st, June 30th, September 30th, and December 31st. So you want to choose a date that aligns best with your internal processes that can help streamline your compliance efforts. Now let's discuss whether your EDGAR account is a single member entity. So this is another step in the enrollment process. This is where you're going to determine whether your EDGAR account is a single member entity. A single member entity can be defined as a sole equity holder, a director or officer, or an individual that represents a position holding similar activities to a director or officer. If the entity can be defined as a single member entity, then your account is considered as such. And just to note, this distinction is necessary to process your enrollment correctly. Now let's walk through the manual enrollment process. So now that we've covered the preparation for EDGAR Next enrollment, let's go over the first step in the process. You're going to need to first attain login.gov credentials. So here you will navigate to the EDGAR Filer Management website. You'll navigate to the EDGAR Filer Management website, and you'll complete the manual enrollment process and set up your permissions and roles for your account administrators and delegated filers. So your first step, as I said, is attaining login.gov credentials. Every EDGAR user must have a unique login.gov account. This is where you will, when you visit login.gov, this is where you will create that account, entering your business email address and setting a secure password. Then you'll set up the multi-factor authentication, or MFA. And here you're going to choose an authentication method like using an authentication app, a security key, or SMS text messaging. And then next, you're going to check your email for a verification link to confirm that business email address that you entered. And then you'll complete authentication by receiving the one-time passcode sent via your chosen MFA method. And once you're set up, your login.gov credentials are ready to be linked to EDGAR Next. All EDGAR users must complete this step before you proceed with enrollment. Next slide, please. So once you have your login.gov credentials, the next step is to access the EDGAR Filer Management website to begin the enrollment process. To do this, you'll visit the site, click Sign In, enter your login.gov email address and password, complete the MFA step, and then once you're logged in, you'll be directed to the EDGAR dashboard where you can proceed with the enrollment. Next slide. So now that you're logged in, let's start the enrollment process. You're going to click Enroll in EDGAR Next that you'll see here at the bottom of my screen, and this will direct you to the EDGAR Next enrollment dashboard where you're going to select between manual and enrollment methods. Next slide. So on the EDGAR Next enrollment page, you're going to select manual enrollment. In this section of the presentation, I'm going to focus on the manual enrollment aspect. So here you'll select manual enrollment and you'll be required to enter your CIK, CCC, and your passphrase. After entering in the information, you're going to click Verify Entity, and the system will then check your details and display your existing filer information. You want to just make sure that all the displayed information matches your records before you proceed. Next slide. The next step in the enrollment process is confirming whether your entity is a single member company. So here you'll need to select yes or no based on your company structure. Remember, if your entity consists of a sole equity holder, director, or officer, you'll select yes. And this selection will determine how many account administrators you will designate and how your entity interacts with the EDGAR system. The SEC staff, by the way, also recommends that individual and single member company filers authorize 2 account administrators during enrollment. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, you need to select your annual confirmation date. So from the drop-down menu, you'll have 4 options. The SEC requires that all filers confirm their EDGAR account details annually on one of these 4 designated dates. So March 31st, June 30th, September 30th, or December 31st. This date is very critical because failure to confirm can result in account deactivation, and a new Form ID is required for access reinstatement. Next slide. All right, now it's time to designate your account administrators. So again, for each administrator, you're going to enter in the following details. So the full name, the email address, the business address, and the business phone number. Next slide. So during the enrollment process, you can choose to allow delegation requests. So if you enable this feature, other EDGAR accounts will be able to request authorization to file on your behalf. If you do not enable this feature, the requests will be blocked, so you won't get any of these requests. So you want to just make sure you select the appropriate option based on your business needs. Next slide. Now, once all required fields are completed, you're going to click Enroll Now to submit your EDGAR Next enrollment. And then on a successful enrollment, you will receive a confirmation message that will appear on your dashboard in the top right-hand corner, and a notification email will also be sent to the EDGAR point of contact and the account administrators confirming your EDGAR Next enrollment. And this will mark the successful completion of your EDGAR Next manual enrollment process. Next slide, please. So once you've enrolled, you can now access your dashboard and delegate filing authority to other EDGAR accounts. This allows for filing agents to submit filings on behalf of your entity. And remember, you do have unlimited delegations per EDGAR account. So to begin, navigate in your dashboard, navigate to My Accounts, and then you're going to select the filer name that you want to manage delegations for. Next slide. So after selecting your account, you want to select Manage Delegations and User Groups to assign new delegated filers or to manage your existing delegations. Next slide. So to delegate filing authority, you're going to need to click on Add Delegation. You'll see on the right side of the screen here. And then you'll enter the CIK or the name of the filer you want to delegate filing authority to. So an important note here, you should only delegate to entities that you do have an existing agreement to file on your behalf. Also want to note here, delegated filers, they cannot further delegate authority or access filing authority or access the delegating filer's dashboard. And want to just mention as well that only CIKs that are enrolled in EDGAR Next can be designated as delegated filers. Next slide. Okay, so before finalizing the delegation, you're going to review all of the details and then you're going to confirm the delegation request. So you'll do this by clicking Delegate and that'll submit the request. Then you'll get a confirmation message. It'll appear at the bottom here. You see at the bottom of my screen, and the delegated filer will receive an invitation to accept. Then your delegated entity will now be able to make filings on your behalf, on behalf of your EDGAR account. And with that, you have successfully enrolled in EDGAR Next and delegated your filers. I will now turn it over to you, Angela. Thank you.
All right, Nikki, thank you. Okay, so now we'll give a short technical review of the bulk enrollment process. Go to the next slide. So for the bulk enrollment process, the bulk enrollment enables multiple EDGAR accounts to be enrolled concurrently. So this process would really benefit those entities who are managing various EDGAR accounts. That could be those entities that are managing multiple ownership accounts, so Section 16 filers, investment companies who are managing multiple funds, or companies who have separate entities with several individual CIKs. So the bulk enrollment would definitely benefit those filers. The bulk enrollment template, there's a CSV file available that you would download from the EDGAR Next dashboard. So once you log into login.gov with your dashboard, you're going to download the CSV file. You'll use that CSV file to complete and upload for bulk enrollment. That file will include a lot of all of the same information that's included in the manual process. So in the bulk enrollment form, says that it allows up to 100 roles, but the header role is considered a role in that document, meaning that you can include up to 99 accounts. So if you need to enroll more than 99 accounts, you would have to complete a separate bulk enrollment form and upload that separately. Okay. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so again, you want to create your login.gov, or if you have a login.gov account created, you want to make sure you're logging into that account, going to your dashboard and selecting the EDGAR Next enrollment option. Under that option, you're going to click on the radio button for bulk enrollment. So when clicking on that button, that is going to open the page that actually provides the CSV template. You can download it from that page. It also provides a document with instructions on how to complete the form. So it's very helpful. lets you know exactly what information is required in each field. Now, I will say that the bulk enrollment template was actually updated on yesterday. So if you have previously downloaded the form and are preparing for bulk enrollment, you may now need to go in and download the new form and complete that form for the bulk enrollment. Okay. All right. So in the form, again, information needed for completing the form is the same information that's required for manual enrollment. The one exception is the requirement of the single member company status. Now, that option is included in the manual process. In the manual process, it is a yes or no response. But in the bulk enrollment form, under column G for single member company, there are different codes that you'll need to use. So for a single member entity, you'll need to put in a 0. For other companies, your corporations, your multiple users, you're going to put in, single member companies, you're going to put in a number 1. Other companies, you're going to use 0. And for those individual filers, it will be your section 16 filers, you're going to put in NA. Okay. So again, in this form, all the same information. You want to make sure that you have identified those persons who are going to be listed as your account administrators. As Nikki mentioned earlier, in the form, when completing the form, the first person listed as the account administrator is considered the point of contact person. So for your corporations, definitely you're required to have 2 account administrators. For those single member companies, individual filers, only required to have 1. Highly suggested that you have 2, just in case something gets locked out and you want to make sure that you have a backup and someone else can go in and actually access the information for you. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so after going through and completing your form, you've reviewed your form, your information looks good, you're ready to upload it. So in the portal, you can go in, you want to make sure your file is downloaded to your desktop or wherever you save your files. You're going to go in and you're going to upload that file to the portal and then click on Enroll Now. If any information is identified as missing or invalid, maybe it's in the incorrect format or there was a required field that wasn't completed, you will receive an error message. Error message is basically saying there's something in your file that's invalid. You need to go back, correct that file or correct that information, save your file, resave your file, and then re-upload it. If the file is successful, then you will receive a message saying that it was successfully uploaded. You are successfully enrolled. Once it is successful, an email will automatically go out to those account administrators, informing them of the enrollment. It will also provide a notification in the dashboard. So account administrators, that point of contact person, you're contacted twice, once in the email, once in the dashboard. Again, the person that's listed, the first person listed as account administrator, also the point of contact, will also receive an email, which is a company update stating that you have been enrolled. Okay. Next slide. So once the enrollment is successful, you are automatically included in the dashboard. So once it is successful, you can go back to your dashboard. In your dashboard, just as Nikki showed earlier, under the filer name, you want to click on the link for your company name. When clicking on that link, it is going to open your dashboard. And then at this point, you can go in, you can start including your users. You can start updating your delegations, managing your delegations, confirming your annual confirmation date. When enrolling, I need to take a step back. So when enrolling, the form or the templates allow you to enroll up to 2 account administrators. But again, as Nikki mentioned earlier, you can have up to 20. So once enrolled, you can go in your dashboard, managing individuals. You can add additional individuals and give them the role of account administrator. Okay. So at this point, your enrollment is complete. Again, you're going into your dashboard, you're making whatever updates, whatever edits you need to make. You're adding your users, you're adding your delegations, and you are ready to start filing with EDGAR Next. Okay. All right, next question. Michelle, we are now open for questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Angela. And thanks to everybody. We're going to start answering some questions now. And so I think if everybody wants to bring their videos up, we're going to cover some questions for the SEC first to make sure we get to those. And sorry, bear with me while I find our questions here. All right. So here's a question. How long is the enrollment process expected to take users?
So I can answer that one.
Or Rita. Okay, great. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So once on the dashboard, we expect the enrollment process, particularly if you're doing manual enrollment for 1 or 2 filers at a time, we expect that to take just a matter of minutes, actually, because it's very easy to do so on the dashboard. However, we would ask, and we have asked, that that people use all the information that we have asked for, and we have provided that information online on our EDGAR Next page. Particularly, you want to know who your account administrators are going to be. Those 2 account administrators, you're going to need the business email address for those account administrators. And so we ask that you please provide all of that information, as well as the filer CIK, CCC, and passphrase. And they'll also need the quarter end date by which the filer will perform annual confirmation on EDGAR, either March 31st, June 30th, September 30th, or December 31st. One last point that I'll make on that is that we did note specifically for Section 16 filers, because they've asked this question, if the filer does not want to enroll him or herself, the filer can definitely authorize someone else to enroll the filer. However, please select someone that you trust. And this can include, but it's not limited to, the filer's employee, the filer's filing agent or law firm, or another trusted entity or individual. And we will remind you, though, that the person or entity the filer selects to enroll them will have sensitive information about that filer's account necessary for enrollment. So again, please, please, please choose someone that you trust to enroll you if you're not going to do it yourself.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question: as a law firm / filing agent, can our account administrators also be users? This appears not to be an option on the beta site.
So I can also take that one. And the reason that is the case is because The account administrators can perform all the same functions that users can perform. So if an individual is signed up as an account administrator, they do not separately need to be signed up as well as a user. And just one more point that I did want to bring up on the prior question about how long it will take for enrollment. It might take a little bit longer if you're doing bulk enrollment, but that's only because in terms of uploading the CSV files, you will have to go through for each of the filers and provide the information that is required for each of those filers. And if you're trying to do, 100 up to 100 at a time for each CSV file, then it may take a little longer to input that information.
Okay, great. Okay, so what happens when we have board of directors whose codes were originally set up by a prior company and we have to file on their behalf, but we don't have access to set ourselves up as agents since we did not manage their codes in the first place?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take this question. So my understanding of the question is the filing agent has the CCC and the password, but not the passphrase. Because presumably they were not involved in setting up the passphrase, and the passphrase is required for enrollment. So, I mean, I think in this case, as Loretta mentioned, the first thing to do is check with the client, check with the filer, make sure that they want you to enroll them, they make sure that they want you to do that. Everything should be always authorized with the filer. And I think also the filer should be coordinating with any other relevant parties to the extent that just make sure that, they're also not going to have their prior filing agent try to enroll them as well, because each CIK can only enroll once. And it could cause confusion if multiple people try to enroll the same CIK. So just please make sure everyone coordinates with the filer. But anyway, in that scenario, assuming the filer says yes, assuming the filer says go ahead and enroll me, the filing agent should be able to reset the passphrase. We have instructions on our website about how to do that. If for whatever reason it can't be done, there is a process to proceed where the filing agent can submit a new form ID, but that's really the last case scenario. I mean, really, the filing agent should be able to reset the passphrase.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, the next question. We have found that many of our clients have no idea that EDGAR Next is coming. What methods has the SEC used to reach out to public companies and individuals with EDGAR codes about these changes?
I see we're running out of time, so I'm just going to give you a brief list of things. First of all, the Commission issued an adopting release on this topic, and that involved a press release and other publication. We've set up a special web page. We have done a social media campaign. We leverage the EDGAR news and announcements quite a bit. So if you folks are not subscribed to EDGAR news and announcements, navigate there on sec.gov and you can subscribe. You would get a email generated to you every time that we post an announcement about EDGAR. But we, my goodness, we've reached out to industry. We've been speaking to XBRL US. We've discussed with SIFMA. We've met with SIFMA members. We've met with, I'm blanking, but we've met with a number of industry groups. So yeah, and then we will do more. We've sent individual emails, and we're going to be sending more emails to filers in the next week or so to make sure everybody knows.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think all of us from the XBRL community on the line here can attest to the fact that, yes, they have done above and beyond. Okay, another quick question. Should we begin the enrollment process now or wait until March 24th?
No, you cannot enroll now. You can't do it. If you're on the beta site, you're not enrolling. Okay, March 24th, that's the first day that you can enroll, and that's on the new EDGAR Filer Management website that will be going live on March 24th. That's when you can start enrolling. And you have that whole 6 months until September 12th within which to enroll and not have your ability to file interrupted. Okay? And then you can keep enrolling until December. But you cannot file until you enroll once we pass the compliance date of September 15th.
Okay, another question. For bulk enrollment, will the error tell you where the error is, or do you have to figure it out?
Yeah, so I can take that. If there are multiple errors, you'll receive a specific message for each one. saying, I think, which row of the spreadsheet and which column. So it will identify specifically what the problems are with bulk enrollment.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we've gotten a lot of questions, but we are kind of at the end of time here. And I know that some of our XBRL community team here has been responding to questions. Thank you very much for that. I think what we'll do, I'm going to look through them really quickly and see if there are one or two that we can answer right now. But then what we'll also do is, the XBRL team here, Nikki, Scott, Wanda, Angela, we're going to take these questions back and try to come up with answers. And but you could also reach out to the SEC directly and send questions to email address would be, Rosemary, what's the appropriate email address?
EDGARnext@sec.gov.
Great. Okay. All right. Let me just see if there's anything we can answer quickly. Okay, the question was, can we download the bulk enrollment template ahead of time on the SEC website to prepare for enrollment? Angela, I think you started addressing that to some extent in your topic.
I'm sorry, repeat that question. I'm sorry.
Can people download the bulk enrollment template ahead on the SEC website to prepare for enrollment?
Yes, absolutely. You can go into the dashboard now and download the CSV file.
Okay. All right. Another quick question. Does an individual Section 16 filer choose yes for single member enrollment?
Actually,
I'm sorry, Daniel.
I was going to say, I believe that question, you should only say yes if you're a single member company. If you're an individual, I believe you're supposed to say NA, but there should be specific instructions on the PDF that accompanies that.
Okay, that was a follow-up question to that one. Is it NA and also is it NA or N-A? I don't know if you know the answer to that, but maybe a little bit too specific here. So
yeah, I would go with whatever it says on the instructions.
Okay.
There are
Probably
PDF instructions, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're over.
I just wanted to say, if you have a question as to whether or not you are a single member company, we have that definition specifically in our EDGAR Next release. So you can pull it up and do a search. I think it was footnote 64. Don't quote me on that, but out of the 212 pages, if you just do a search, you can find single member company, and we have a definition for it.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thanks so much to the SEC team who you have joined us and brought so many people with such a wealth of knowledge. And also I want to thank all of our team from the XBRL US membership, Nikki, Angela, Scott, Wanda. You did an awesome job. And we will go through these questions to try to get back to everybody with answers. Thank you very much. And we'll see you on our next webinar.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.